Neville Goddard, 1965 lectures, The Law. February 12th, 1965, or as Rob Halford would say, The Law. Tonight we'll be on The Law. A very dear friend of mine will be leaving in, maybe 2 weeks for London, then off to Russia, then off to the Orient. She has asked me to confine my thoughts for the next 3 lectures while she'll be here to the law. Nice. And so she's very dear to me. And so for the next 3 lectures, it will be on the law. I'm quite sure you can apply it this night and prove it in the immediate present. Well, we've been so promise-rific since any of these 1963, 4, and 5, since he experienced the promise. We'll see what he pulls out of the hat for these next 3 lectures. I'm excited to see this. They really do differ. God's promise, God's law. His promise, as we're told in the 22nd chapter of Genesis, was made unto himself, for there was no one with whom he could swear, for he was all by himself. Verse 16. The same thing happens with the law. I can't turn to another and swear to the other that I will be faithful to my image. I do it unto myself only from a lower level. God's promise is fulfilling itself whether you or I know it or not. So his promise is moving forward towards fulfillment. On this level, we call it the law. And so he said the promise is unconditioned because on this level, we have not a thing to do with it. But the law on this level, we have everything to do with it. And so it's all conditioned. Do I believe it? It's all based upon a story. In the beginning was the story. That's how the whole thing begins. In the beginning was the Word. The word doesn't mean a little word. A word in Scripture means a thought that is complete, that is understood. It's a story. So in the beginning was the story, and the human characters are bound to come, for where the story is, there the characters gather. Don't be concerned, they will come. So I tell myself a story. What story? The story I want to be true about myself. I want to be this, that, or the other person, and then I tell myself the story. I need not be concerned as to who will come into my world to play this part. They'll all come. They must come because wherever the story is, there the characters gather also. Very, very true. I told you a story about my wife leaving for work and having all these deadlines needing to be met, and I imagined her, simply after she left, I imagined her walking back in and telling me the good news about how these deadlines were going to be met, that they all seemed totally impossible when she was walking out the door. I imagined as she walked in that she'd be telling me that these deadlines were definitely going to be met. And as it were, the people gathered. The automatons went into motion. Everybody wanted 7 days, 12 hours a day of overtime, like it was gleeful. They literally pitched in like nobody's business. And all these deadlines came to fruition, and everything was in harmony. It's like little soldiers on that old, I don't know if anybody's here of the vintage. Remember those little football games? They were like a little magnet under a metal plate, and they put all these little football players on there. Then it vibrated the thing, and all of a sudden the football players started moving around. And I don't even know, it didn't make any sense to me as a little kid. Because I'm like, how do they know what to play? You know, my brain's thinking deeper. But it's like that, though. It's like a magnet is shaking something, and there's a vibration happening because of not an affirmation so much as an assumption. My assumption that she was going to walk back in and tell me the deadlines are all met, everybody's completely on target now. I don't know how it happened, but it happened, and that's all that matters. She walks in and she shares that news with me. That's all was my assumption, that she was going to come back and tell me that news. And I was going to hug her, high five her, be glad with her, and hear that gospel. And everybody went into motion. The characters gather also. The assumption brings the characters in the play to fruition. It is that simple. I know it sounds complicated. If you're new to this, go back to the law videos, start there, then come to the law and the promise videos. If you're brand new to this, but there is a connection to all this. The assumption drives the characters, puts them into life, animates their very being. So I stand here this night and think of the man that I would like to be. And when I tell myself the story as though it were true, just as though it were true, and then I tell myself, now I must be faithful to that story as the story God told me in the beginning of time. Now I must be faithful to that story as the story God told me in the beginning of time. For he told me that he would take me through a fabulous world in which there would be slavery, horrors, all things, but in the end, he would bring me out. And he and I would be one. We would not be two, Genesis 15:12. And I would be endowed with his creative power. That everything in this world that I desired, I could create instantly. He told me that, but he didn't pledge me to be faithful to it. He told me that that is his promise to me. Remember, that is a description of the age to come. Now, here in this world, I'm called upon to be imitators. I must be an imitator of God as a dear child. Just as he told me that story, he told me to imitate him. So I must imitate him in this world and tell myself the most glorious story and be as faithful to that story as he is to the story that he told me. For he told me he would not leave me, and he told me how I would bring forward in this world evidence of the fact that he is my husband. He told me that, and it is entirely up to God to be faithful to his story that he told me. In this world, I must now be faithful to the story I'm going to tell myself. For in the 22nd chapter of Genesis, he had no one with whom he could swear, so he swore by himself. So I should take no one into my confidence. I will swear by myself and tell myself a story and be as loyal to that unseen reality as he is loyal to that unseen reality that he told me. Don't forget, I told no one about my meditating I was going to sleep in SATS March of 2023, and for about 4 to 6 weeks, probably 5 weeks, I imagined myself on a cruise ship. That was in 2023, March and April. And then the planning went into effect no later than May. I mean, the talks began right when I started doing the SATs. But the planning started in May, and it continued for at least a year. Believe me, a trip as fun and power-packed as we had, planning's involved. And my wife loves that kind of that kind of planning. She's very good at that kind of thing. So the only time I ever revealed what I did was at the top of the Fairmont Hotel in Monaco, Monte Carlo, and the waiter handed me, I know I've said it before, but the waiter handed me a glass that looks exactly like this. This glass I didn't own at the time. I had it in my imagination as the glass the waiter on the boat was handing me with some soda water and a lime in it. And I just kept using that visualization. And I kept feeling the coldness of the glass and the taste of the sparkly soda water and the taste of the lime, and I wanted salt on the rim. It's a drink that I like. And when I was handed that glass on the top of the Fairmont hairpin, the Fairmont Hotel rooftop, we were at a restaurant up there, I almost fell off the chair. And it wasn't about the time it took, it was about that I kept this thing completely private. I didn't tell anybody. Now, it was one thing to have been on the cruise, and we're now in the middle of it, basically, from Rome to Barcelona along the northern Mediterranean. It's our 25th wedding anniversary cruise, and my sister's 22nd wedding anniversary, I believe, or 21st, one of those two. And now I'm handed the glass that I've been using in my sets. The glass. I bought the glass set after I got home because I was so dumbfounded by it. But the privacy of it is the main point. I didn't tell anybody. And then when I shared the story of what I did on that rooftop, my voice went like this and over the building edge and out over the water, and then probably went into the water because my wife, my sister, and her husband, they were looking at the menu and they didn't engage. I don't even know if they heard what I said. If they did, it just went right through them. But this privacy factor, this privacy idea, this swearing by yourself is very important part. It's a confidence in the act. For in the 22nd chapter of Genesis, repeating, he had no one with whom he could swear, so he swore by himself. So I should take no one into my confidence. I will swear by myself and tell myself a story and be as loyal to that unseen reality as he is loyal to that unseen reality that he told me. Now, many years ago, I would say 1948, in this city, I met this perfectly lovely couple. He was a salesman. He sold drugs for an Eastern company. And he said to me, Neville, I would like to do a bigger job than I'm doing now. I said, all right, what would you want? He said, I would like a larger territory. I would like to be not just a salesman, but to be employing salesmen, have the territory for myself. I said, all right, you really want that? Yes, exclamation point. Then let us now agree that you have it. Now let's take a fast, I'm going to interject here and take a fast glance and very, very intense look at what Neville just did. He simply asked the person after they told him, Neville, I would like. And then when he responded, his response was, do you really want that? That's what he said, number one. Simple, simple, simple. What do you want? What do you want? And secondly, what Neville did, then let us now agree that you have it. So we constructed a scene which, if true, would imply that he had it. His wife agreed to it. She was all for it. So together we went into the silence and saw him with his very large territory. Remember, he said we went into the silence. The wife was in agreement as well. I haven't read this yet, but I believe maybe all three of them did this. So together we went into the silence and saw him with his very large territory where he was sales manager he was given the right to employ and to fire, say, 6 or more salesmen in the area. In that year, he was given that job, and he became a sales manager in this area, and the area extended from San Diego up to this area. I believe he's in Los Angeles at this time. A year later, he moved up into the very end of our continent. He moved across into the entire what is called Western states. It also necessitated traveling, and he began to travel, which meant he was never at home. She blew her top. I reminded her of what we had agreed upon. Remember, couple what we're talking about right now with earlier, I said, I believe when the question was asked at the Q&A session, does it give it more emphasis if two people are focused on the same result? And Neville said it just takes one with faith. That is true, for sure. No doubt about it. But when you got Neville, you have the guy wanting what he wants, and additionally the wife there too, all going into the silence and seeing that end result. I mean, it's the compounding. I mean, come on. And of course, then what happens? This expansion. And it kept going, apparently. It also necessitated traveling, and he began to travel, which meant he was never at home. She blew her top. I reminded her of what we had agreed upon. It didn't console her at all. He was now traveling all over and she was at home. He would come home on Friday night, off on Monday morning, seeing all these people. This very night he's in Rochester, New York. So she called me yesterday. He'll be home tomorrow night late. He's off again on Monday. I said, I won't mention her name because you may know her. Don't you know what you asked me years ago? What you and he agreed upon, that we would do it? That here is the play. In the beginning was the play. It was the Word. And all the human characters that are necessary to make that play real are bound to come. Listen to the words. All the human characters that are necessary to make that play real are bound to come. All you have to do is remain faithful to the play. That is it. And so they came, didn't they? And now you are complaining. He has grown in stature. He has grown in his income, grown in everything. He's maybe 2 years my senior. By the laws of that company, he has to resign at the age of 65. But I'm 60, so he must be 62. And he has 3 more years to go, but he must resign. But he will resign at the price that he is making, and you're standing in his way right now, complaining because he's out, and yet when he was home 7 days a week, you didn't want that. You wanted something bigger for your husband, something better for your husband, and so we agreed upon it, didn't we? Wait, what's the warning? Be careful what you ask for. You just may get it. Oh boy. Well, I can't tell anyone in this world what's going to happen after we construct the play. So we construct the play. In the beginning was the play. That is the story. And all the human characters are bound to come. Because wherever the play is, there all the characters gather. I don't have to concern myself with anything in this world. I have a brother, my second brother, who actually conceived a play, and he saw it in his mind's eye so clearly. Didn't have a nickel, we had none, but he saw a sign which, if true, would imply that we as a family owned that structure and that we were conducting business in it. My brother today is, in a really true sense of the word, he's a lonely man. As I said in my last video, maybe the one before that at the most, I really believe my goal in all of my metaphysical learning since September of 1991, because of the previous breakup I was involved in, and because that meant that much to me, that's what drove me to ask the big why, drove me to my teacher and set me on a course that I constructed for myself to learn what is the reason why. Why would I make a mistake? Why would I harm something that I really wanted to be involved with? This was my push. And all through the entire thing, keeping love as the central focus continuously, all through metaphysical learnings, all through the relationships I would have, everything, and end up with my wife as I am today, 25 years married already. And it's always been the central focus. But in Victor's case, there's nothing right or wrong here. I'm just describing something. I'm just describing, I'll tell you my point in a second, but his drive was business. And they achieved that. He saw the sign, Neville, Goddard and Sons Enterprise, Neville, whatever, Goddard Enterprises, I believe it is now. But he might have saw it as Goddard and Sons Enterprises or Goddard Enterprise. Whatever he saw, I forget the exact wording or phrase, but he did construct something right there in that visualization for the entire family. And when the father left at 80-something years old, 82 or 85, he left everybody independently wealthy. Off of one man's visualization. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong with Victor, but he was driven to do the business aspect, and he was in love with it, as Neville described. He'd walk in and he'd smell the odor of the grocery store or whatever it was, or the factory or the noise, and he was just in love with it. Where Neville, in Neville's shoes, he was in love with walking into a lecture hall about to apply what he was talking about. That's what he was in love with. My brother today is, in a really true sense of the word, he's a lonely man. My driving idea, what I wanted to tell you was, I think love is a good place to start. I think it's really why we are here. Literally, when we're embraced by him, it's only because we say, what's the most important thing in the world? Faith, hope, and love. But love is the most important of them all. What's one thing you're going to take with you? I believe your experience of love, not your experience of wealth, not your experience of health. I think the biggest challenge that we're constantly marching towards in our 6,000 years, or 400, or 430, whatever, is the value of the experience of love. Because he's become so powerful in the business world, the people that he knew so intimately before are afraid of him. He goes home, he's all alone. Such honesty from Neville about his brother. Love it. He's coming up here this week on business. He represents millions and millions. This is $1965, okay? So times it by 10. And it's touched him in his own strange way because he actually grew into his picture. He told his own story. Perfectly right on the money. He's weaned himself from his entire social world because he's a powerful businessman in his area. Our president today, let no one tell you with all this bravado, he is a very happy man. He's a lonely man. People are afraid of him. He's grown into vision of what he wanted. I believe this is Nixon. Everyone can grow into their vision if they will only actually believe the story. God told me a story in the beginning of time. And that story was he would so become me that I would become God. But he didn't impose it upon me that I had to believe it. He swore it unto himself. I didn't have to believe it. That's unconditioned. But while I'm passing through the horrors of the world, I must imitate God as a dear child and impose upon myself the same kind of a story and believe it. Not take anyone into my confidence, simply take myself and believe it. So I must imagine that I am the man that I want to be. Neville just said the word must, so pay attention. I must imagine that I am the man I want to be. I'm not saying let the two of us believe it. For I could pass the buck and say, well, now you didn't keep your faith with me. You didn't believe it. So I could always pass it to someone else. No, you can't pass it to anyone else. It's all to one's self. Either I believe it or I don't. For God believed it, and he brought it forth in me. I'm speaking from experience. He brought forth his child in me. He did it. He began the good work in me. He brought it to completion by the birth of the child in me. Philippians 1:6. Now I, as a man, must assume that I am the man that I want to be and not turn to anyone for assistance. and say, well, now you aren't helping me. You aren't agreeing with me. You aren't joining with me. I don't need anyone to join with me. I must imitate God as a dear child. If I imitate him, I do exactly what he did, and he did it without the help of anyone. For God is one, and so I am one. And so I simply start with the story. In the beginning was the story. So tonight, I would say, what is the story? When we go into the silence at the end of this, you tell me what you would want in this world. I don't care what it is, just paint it. The lady that you want to be, or what you want your husband to be, or what you want your child to be, that's perfectly all right. It's you. Don't take the child into your confidence and say, now you and I will agree. And then if the child does not become what you want the child to be, you can say to the child, you didn't keep your bargain. No, it's not another. It's all self. There is no other. So don't pass bucks to anyone in this world. It's all unto one's self. So this is the law she will take to London. This is the law she will take to Russia. The law she will take to the Orient as she goes on the 23rd. There is no other. This is conditioned only upon one's self. Will I believe it? Let me go back to a thought that came a few years ago from Robert Frost. He said, the founding fathers did not believe in the future, they believed it in. The greatest thing and the most creative thing in man is to believe a thing in. Now, as I stand before you, we're told in Scripture, if there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will speak to him in a dream and make myself known unto him in a vision. Numbers 12:6. Well, a prophet is not a fortune teller. Believe me. A prophet is not someone that you go to and say, what is my tomorrow? That's no prophet. A prophet is one who interprets having heard the word of God. That's all a prophet is. Jonah was no prophet in a modern sense of the word, for his prophecy of the disaster of Nineveh, his prophecy of the disaster of Nineveh failed because he told them, you do this or else. And they did what he told them, and there was no disaster. You're told in the story he regretted that. But the Lord told him that's exactly the message he had to send. If you repent, no disaster. If you don't repent, disaster. Well, they repented. There was no disaster. So a prophet in the true sense of the word simply hears the word of God, a message of God, and then communicates it to the world. Well, I have heard that word time and time again. And I try every time that I hear it to reach anyone I'm telling. Well, here is one, and many of you present heard it a few years ago, one morning, early in the morning. I had this experience. I'm standing in an enormous mansion on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and 3 generations are supposed to be present. One is visible. He is spoken of as grandfather. There are 2 generations, the second and the third, and the second generation is telling the story of grandfather. The second one tells this story. Grandfather used to say, while standing on an empty lot, I remember when this was an empty lot. And then he would paint a word picture of his desire for that lot and paint it so vividly. They saw exactly the structure that would stand upon it. But to him, it was standing upon it, and they saw it as something present standing upon it. Well, they told that story in my presence. Then I woke and found myself on my bed. It was around 3 a.m. I got out and wrote it out on a big yellow page, the entire story. It was too early to remain up, so I went back to bed and redreamed the dream. This time, as I went into the same structure, instead of hearing someone tell the story, I'm telling the story. So I so absorbed the message of the faith of grandfather, I told him I was standing on an empty lot, and standing on it, I would remember when it was an empty lot. Then I painted for them the word picture of my desire for that lot in such graphic manner that they all saw it as I painted it in words. Now, in the 41st chapter of the book of Genesis, Pharaoh has a dream, and no magician can interpret it. So he calls upon Joseph, and Joseph is made to hear the dream. This is the dream. I stood on the banks of the Nile, and out of the Nile came 7 very fat cows, sleek and fat. Then came 7 lean, scrawny cows, and they ate up the 7 fat cows. And yet it might have been as though they hadn't eaten, for they were just as scrawny as thin as they were before. Then came 7 ears of corn on one stalk, lovely, blooming, luscious. And then came 7 thin, as though they were scorched by the wind, and they ate up the 7 fat ones. I asked my magicians to interpret, and no one could. Then Joseph said, this is the meaning of the dream. It's one dream, though you had 2 dreams, it's one dream. The 7 fat cows and the 7 luscious ears of corn are one. The 7 thin cows and the 7 thin ears of corn are one. You will have 7 years of great plenty, 7 years, and then 7 years of famine so great people will forget they ever had abundance in this world. With 7 years of famine, you will not even remember there was ever a moment of plenty in the world. Then he told me what he would do, how he would save a portion of every year for the next 7 years. So he would have a cushion against the 7 lean years of famine. Then said he, and these are the words, the doubting of the dream means that the thing has been fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass if the dream is doubled. Well, that night my dream was doubled. I awoke, wrote it out, retired, and redreamed the dream. Having redreamed the entire dream, it is fixed as a law of God. And God reveals himself to man. If he's the prophet, he reveals himself in vision and tells him, go and tell it to the world. For if I say I will not mention it or speak any more in his name, then there is in my heart, as it were, a burning fire shut up in my bones. And I am weary with holding it in, and I cannot. Jeremiah 29. So I cannot contain myself. I cannot contain within myself the vision. I must tell it. So the telling of it is this. You can stand here this night. This is the law. And say, I remember when he or she or they were no one. Wouldn't that imply that they are someone else? You can look at someone in this world and say, I remember when he had nothing. Well, if I remember when he had nothing, I'm implying he has something today. I remember when he was unknown. If I remember when he was unknown, isn't he now known? I just said recently in a video, I had a dream, and it must have repeated at least 5 times. It was within about not even a dozen to 2 dozen videos previous to this one. I'm telling you, God told me this story This is a vision. This is God's word. A vision is his word. When you have a vision, that's God's word to you. And I've told you about my visions in the 1 or 2 videos ago. I've told you about my visions of mystical experiences, of some of them. Winning the fight, winning the race, having fought the fight, the crown forming on my head, going to the Northeast on a motorcycle, passing up everybody. That means winning the race. I'm told that by 3 men, 1 tall, 2 a little shorter. God told me this story. He's talking about the double dream. This is a vision. This is God's word. A vision is his word. In the beginning of the book of Obadiah, the servant of the Lord, the servant of Jehovah. This is the vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord, 1:1. He equates the vision with the blank space of Jehovah. So the vision is God's word, and God's word cannot return void. It's a law. You cannot break it. So he equates vision with the word of Jehovah. And I had the vision of Jehovah. Because it was a double vision, it was affirmed the thing was true. So I tell you what was told me. You take anyone in this world and bring them into your mind's eye and say to yourself, I remember when you didn't have a nickel. I remember when you couldn't get a job. I remember when you were embarrassed because you were uneducated, when you were unwanted. I remember when. That's the story. And when you see it in your mind's eye, that would imply that they are not that anymore, would it not? Well, you try it. Try it this way. Just try it. Call upon everyone to try it. This is the law. So she can take it to London. She can take it to her wonderful Oriental world where she's going to study. Take it as she passes through Russia and tell them the story. If she meets anyone in Russia who cannot get beyond first base because of the conditions of the setup under which they live, they don't have to be restricted to any restriction by this world if they know this law. Remember, that's the country that they're very concerned if you bring in a Bible or not. And I believe I just saw somewhere the same is true of North Korea about bringing in a Bible. Like very, very prohibited. If they know the law, it doesn't matter under what system I live. I believe in Neville's interpretation of the Bible, that's the main reason it might not be allowed in Russia. If I'm correct about Russia, I think it's Russia and also North Korea, because it is a book that describes how to use the law. I can be the man, the woman that I want to be if I know God's law. That goes for anywhere in the world you might live and be able to see this or hear this. Anywhere. And with the wonderful new thing that YouTube is doing, they're overdubbing videos in every language. It's fascinating. I can be the man, the woman that I want to be if I know God's law. Communism, where you can't breathe for yourself, you're told how to do it, but you don't have to if you know God's law. Well, he revealed it to me. I found it so clearly. I became grandfather, and standing on an empty lot, I painted a word picture of my desire for that lot. And everyone saw it as something completed in the world. I didn't construct it, I just painted it in words, and the whole thing. So I say, in the beginning was the story, and all the human characters are bound to come. For where the story is, there the characters gather. I don't care what the world will say. When my brother had nothing and he saw that sign, a man that he knew casually the very day of the sale of that lot, the most desirable lot, he came in and said, Vic, are you going to buy it? He said, with what? Well, I have money and I'll buy it for you. I need no collateral if you have none. Give me your signature and your father's signature, and on that little piece of paper you promise that you will pay me 6% on the investment and reduce it over 10 years. So at the end of 10 years, the principal has been repaid. And over the 10 years, you will pay 6% on any principal that is left. So you start right away. Vic said, all right. And so here, a man out of nowhere, a human character, comes in and buys it. We had no money, and that day we owned the building. And that day we moved in. This fantastic story underline, unfolded. And now from that little beginning, he repaid it with his 6% interest. At the end of 25 years, the man died, having put the money back into the business at 4% because it was the best he could get. And then when he died, he left my brother Victor. He didn't leave us as a family. He left my brother Vic $150,000 in cash and many pieces of property, all kinds of things in the island, because he called him his best friend. That was Vic just simply telling himself a story. So in the beginning was the story. As you're told in John, in the beginning was the Word. But the word means meaning. Well, a story must have meaning or it isn't a story. So in the beginning was the Word, or the story, and the story was with God, and the story was God. He became the story. So, imagining creates reality. That's what I'm saying to my friend tonight. That is the foundation stone. Imagining creates reality, and you start from there. And no power in this world can stop it, because you don't need another to agree with you. Back to the 22nd chapter of Genesis, he swore by himself and asked us to imitate him as dear children. So he had no one when he swore to Abraham. He did not ask Abraham to join with him and make it possible. That was done. Now we, in the world of Caesar, we don't have to ask anyone to join with us to make it possible. We simply tell ourselves a story, and telling ourselves a story, we believe in the reality of the unseen state. As we remain faithful to the unseen reality, it begins to call human characters into the world to externalize it. It's amazing how it works. It all becomes projected and externalized within our world. This is the story of the law. He is painting for us the most hardcore, true center of how it works. So everyone is free if you really believe in God's wonderful law. The promise I've told you night after night. Yes. Ad infinitum, ad nauseum. I was wondering when he was going to creep back towards the law, because, man, we were going deep. And I'm sure we're going to get back into the depths real soon. But the law is something really, really needs to be kind of spread out, man. We got to use it. The promise I have told you night after night, it's coming. No one can stop it. And no one will fail to realize it, because God didn't take anyone into his confidence when he made the promise. There was no one with whom he could swear and take into his confidence when he swore by himself. These are the words, I swear unto myself, this shall be. And so the promise was made. The child is coming, whether you know it or not. And when the child comes, you and he, the begetter, are one. Then you rise up into an entirely different world, completely subject to your imaginative power. But until we get there, we're called upon to exercise the same power. Keyed low on this level, and keyed low, we simply tell ourselves a story. We're imitators of God. So there's nothing in this world that man can create more that is greater thrill to him than to believe a thing in. Yes, our founding fathers did not believe in the future. The mere passage of time isn't going to do a thing. They believed it in. He said, what evidence had I that I could write a poem? I simply believed it. That's what the old man said. Old Frost, I simply believed it. There was no evidence that I could do it, but I believed it and I wrote it. When he died, he was considered, along with Eliot, possibly the greatest in the century as a poet. And that's what he said. I simply believed it in. There is no power in the world but simply believing. Well, were we not told that as the essence of belief in the 11th chapter, 24th verse of the book of Mark, whatever you desire, believe you have received it and you will? That's the essence of it all. Whatever you desire, believe that you've received it and you will. There's a lady in this audience tonight. She wrote me the most wonderful letters, which I got last Tuesday, of these wonderful mystical experiences of hers. They're fantastic, perfectly wonderful. But coming out of this level, she said, just before you left last May for the East, I told you that I was giving an exhibition of paintings at Disney in Burbank, the studio in Burbank. Soon after we agreed, and you said to me, all are sold and it's all based upon faith. They're sold! Exclamation point. Everyone sold and all based upon faith. Well, you went east, and soon thereafter, they all began to be sold. 5 months later, because of the success of that exhibition, they called me for another display, and I only had small little paintings then, for I had sold the others. I only had little ones, but I sent them over and took them over. Within 5 days, I sold $600 worth of my little paintings at this studio in Burbank, the Disney studio, all upon what? Imagining. $600 would be $6,000 to us today. Remember, 10 times. 1965 to 2025. She's an artist. What would she work? Why should she work in her wonderful studio and not sell her work? Why should others not have the joy of looking at what she can create? I can't paint, but I love paintings. In fact, I think my walls are too cluttered with the things that I have, all slung around, but every one thrills me. I can walk into them. I can look at a painting at home. I can step right into it. Blank space with it. I have one little lady who is always walking out of a picture. She never gets out because she's always stuck there. But I go with her, walk right out of the painting of her. Lovely old lady. My father-in-law who had the painting, he loved it. And because of his love, I love it. I look at it, it's a lovely thing, and I simply walk right into her and join her, walk with her right now. And so all of these things are to exercise the imagination. So all over my walls, I don't have so many walls. There's always, in every little place, there's an etching or a painting where it excites the mind. You look at it, contemplate, and step right into it. Become a part of it. There's a beach scene, I sit on it. There's another scene where there's a lion on this desert area, sit next to him, feel him, and the whole thing becomes alive. The whole thing is alive because you are alive. You make everything alive in this world. These things shouldn't be dead. These paintings, not if you really move into them, make them all alive. So you take a play tonight, and I'm speaking for my friend, and will be for the next 2 lectures, all on the law. You tell your friends when you meet them that imagining creates reality. Don't forget that. And then you start from that premise. And so you conceive a lovely story, wonderful story, all about yourself or about someone that you love. Then you persuade yourself of the reality of this story. Don't be concerned about the people who are going to play their parts to make it real. All the human characters will come right into it. They must come into it. For where their story is, they must come to it. For where this story is, there they all gather, they must gather. So you simply concern yourself only with the story. In the beginning was the Word. And the story, in the beginning was the Word, the story, and that story was with God, and the story was God. That's the whole story. And then in this wonderful world of ours, we unfold it. The whole thing comes to pass. Believe it! Exclamation point. It is true. Imagining does create reality. You see where I'm constantly wedding my experience of the Seth material with the Neville material because they say the same thing. Seth's main message, Seth was begat by Jane in 1963 with her first out-of-body experience where she traveled into the windowsill, into a nail on the windowsill. Remembering back to Neville, to Elmer O'Locker's testimonial video on his grandson's channel. The channel is called by the grandfather's name, Elmer O'Locker, where he says when he went back to that VIP meeting after he climbed the ladder, first thing Neville did was I think he covered their heads with blankets. And then they literally, I think I might have gotten this in either another video or something written by Elmer, but either way, it was that he had an out-of-body experience and he went into the clock. And then he went out and became all of Los Angeles. Something to that effect. That's how profound out-of-bodies are. Because it's all consciousness. Jane Roberts begat Seth, started channeling Seth in 1963. Well, Neville's, this is 1965. So you see, the ball has always been carried. The ball, which is the truth. Truth will never dilute or disappear. It's always available. That was a statement made by Seth. It's always available. It's never not. It's never hidden. It's always available. So Jane comes into the picture, pun in the paintings, and starts channeling Seth. And Seth is saying pretty much the same thing. His main message, what I'm trying to get to here, is you create your own reality according to your thoughts, imagination, thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Emotions is feeling. Beliefs are basically an extension of thoughts. What you imagine, you believe. And you emote is the feeling aspect. So Seth comes in and uses three words, thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. You create your own reality according to your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Neville had it simply a lot leaner and a lot more sleek. Imagining creates reality. Different generation, I don't know. Seth said it differently, whatever. He was talking to a bunch of hippies in Jane Roberts' ESP class. I can say hippie, I was born of that generation. Born in 66, right in the thick of hippiedom by hippie parents. The message. You create your own reality. The message. Imagining creates reality. Wonderfully wedded together in these two studies. Two main huge studies that I have been involved with and experienced with over 33 years. They work wonderfully together. Believe it, it is true. Imagining does create reality. And may I tell you what will happen? When this thing actually begins to become alive within you and the child comes into this world, unknowingly, the strangest things will happen to you that you do not understand. You're exercising the most fantastic power in the world of which you are totally unaware and will remain not completely unaware, but unaware while you are still wearing this very heavy garment of flesh and blood. But you will do strange things. Others will be aware of it, and you'll have no knowledge that you did it. You know what you did, but you didn't intend it that way. But peculiar things will happen in your world, strange things. I could tell you unnumbered things of which I am totally unaware that I was the cause of it, but I must have been, for it was all traced back to something that I did. But you're blocked out from knowing the deliberate actions. You simply do it. I will now not violate a confidence because it was not said to me not to tell it. But here is one simple little story. A man, having had an experience of the nature that the speakers had, and therefore the messianic power is upon him now, can't stop it. The messianic power then becomes a part of you, makes you a free man. To choose your own vocation. A man, I got to repeat it, having had an experience of the nature that the speakers had. That's a phrase, by the way, that he's trying to say himself. That's a phrase that used to be common. The speaker this night, when you're the one talking, is you. A man having had an experience of the nature that the speakers had, and therefore the messianic power is upon him now, can't stop it. The messianic power then becomes a part of you, makes you a free man to choose your own vocation. You can be a speaker, as I am, or as a painter, a writer, a dress designer. It's entirely up to you to choose your vocation and the use you will make of this messianic power. There's no restriction on you after the birth. Of the child. There is no restriction on you after the birth of the child. There's a power, a peculiar power that possesses you. Oh boy. It is very, very true. And so you write one that you love dearly, and they live far away from here, thousands of miles away. You write a letter explaining a certain experience to one you really love, and you post it late, say tonight. As you post it, you imagine you're putting it on the desk of the one you love, just as you post it. The next day the phone rings, and this one is asking you how this thing could have happened. Because when you posted that letter from the postmark on the outside, and from your letter as you dated it, my office was closed. When I came to my office today, the mail had not been delivered. And this letter was on my desk. How do you explain it? I remember that story. I know he's describing it now, of course, but it's in another lecture. I forget where, of course. There's so much gold to dig through. How do you explain it? And you have to confess, being an honest person, I don't know. I don't know. I only know I posted it late last night. I only know I posted it late night. I only know I posted it last night late. But as I did so, I put it on your desk and before the mail was delivered. So the one who received it, the one to whom it was addressed, asked the secretaries, do you know anything about this? They all confessed, no, we didn't bring it in. It wasn't sent special delivery. It was sent ordinary air mail, but posted late, sent to the East Coast. And here, the letter is on the desk. You can do this at any time with your imagination, any time. You can call a friend by shouting their voice in your imagination, and they will hear you. It's that simple. I can multiply that by the dozens. No one in this world could rationalize it. They can't explain it. And he can't explain it. He only now is coming and tasting of the power that is his from now on. The messianic power. It's almost the minute this event takes place in our life, it is ours from then on. And no one can take it from us forever and forever. He just said, once you taste of the messianic power, it's yours forever and forever. You can't be the guy, what was the guy in the Matrix who's eating the steak and says he wants to be put back into the Matrix and just forget about everything. You ain't going back. You saw his fate in the movie. They had a little shootout whatever it was, where they transferred themselves in and out of the Matrix. He shot it out and he definitely got blasted. He definitely forgot. Back to the wheel of recurrence. But like this guy that wrote this letter, or it was a story, I don't know if it was in letter form, but it was a story about a letter also, but he tasted of the messianic power and it's his forever and forever, and it is not going anywhere once you taste of the messianic power. But here we will do it unwittingly. Tomorrow, we will do it reflectively, fully conscious of every act. And every act, the outcome is predetermined. No doubts in the mind whatsoever. In this, it was done just unwittingly. But the power was there and the letter was on the desk. You tell that to anyone in this world, they'd say, that's insane. It just can't be. There's no possibility of that letter being posted late tonight to reach that destination in the east tomorrow before the mail is delivered and before someone opens that door and enters the office. But there was the letter. And I had the pleasure of reading the letter from the one who received it in complete amazement, asking for some explanation. So it was told me, I believe him implicitly. But aside from the belief in him, which is 100%, he confirmed it with a letter from the one who had received it, bewildered, can't understand it. This is the power of which I speak, which is the messianic power. So to come back to our premise tonight, imagining creates reality. If that's a red pill to you and you haven't been working on this more than watching a short and now you're on this video, just take the red pill. That's the red pill. Imagining creates reality. The blue pill, click away. You're not ready. It's not your time. That's okay. The will of recurrence exists for you. So what you imagine with faith, and if you remain as faithful to the imaginal act as God has, and is remaining to his promise to you to make you himself, nothing is impossible. Let me repeat this little tiny paragraph. So, closing paragraph. So, to come back to our premise tonight, imagining creates reality. So what you imagine with faith, and if you remain as faithful to the imaginal act as God has, and is remaining to his promise to you to make you himself, nothing is impossible. Literally, literally. Now, as we're going to go into the silence, you're going to tell your story to yourself from a friend. Imagining now, your friend is telling the story about you to others. The story of the person you want to be, or the woman you want to be, or the man you want to be. You want to be married, happy with children and a new house? No problem. Who cares what markets and finances and economy. Nothing of that matters. This is a story that your friend, who you know the voice of, is telling some other people, and you're right there eavesdropping. As we go into the silence, they're telling others about your story. Now, let us go into the silence. What do you hear? All right. You've heard it. Congratulations. I hope it was a noble story that you told yourself. And if you are faithful to that story you just told yourself, it will come to pass. Let no one tell you you need any help from anyone in the world. That story that you told yourself, remain faithful to it. Now, are there any questions, please? Remain faithful to it. Question, Neville. That story in the letter reminds me of something I never told you, but when you sent me a card from New York, it arrived stamped, but with no stamp on it. The post office had stamped it, and at the time we laughed and said, wouldn't you know, nobody but Neville could get through the United States Post Office without a stamp. We thought it was very funny. But now in light of this, it certainly fits this. I have that postcard, I think. Well, Lucy, dear, strange things happen after one brings forth the child. Strange things. You can't explain it even to the one who is bewildered, because you are as bewildered because you are still veiled. This garment of flesh and blood is a veil. And we do not really come into our full inheritance until it's taken off for the last time. While we are still wearing it, you have the power and you exercise the power. You are seen elsewhere where you shouldn't be there. You're seen across water thousands of miles away. And you stand bodily present in the presence of one who knows you intimately and talk to you. And yet you don't know. It's a peculiar power that possesses you, and there you go. Well, this strange thing happens to all of us. And the minute it comes, but the day will come, you take it off for the last time, and then it's over. The power is yours to exercise consciously, reflectively. Question, inaudible. Answer, insincere people? Certainly, my dear, but you forgive everyone. People don't know. If they knew, they wouldn't be insincere. But they are because they don't know. They really believe the grave is the end. And they talk about it not being the end, but they really have no confidence whatsoever. Let us be patient with those. Oh, what was the phrase? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Hey, there's no faults here. They really believe the grave is the end, and they talk about it not being the end, but they really have no confidence whatsoever. And so because they don't know it's not the end, they'll make every little effort to cushion themselves while they are still here. Every little effort. So forgive them. Forgive everyone. They don't know. But they are. But don't, as Blake said, you can see from what I've told you, I do not consider either the just or the wicked to be in a supreme state, but to be every one of them states of the sleep into which the soul may fall in its deadly dreams of good and evil. And so people try to put on all these things. Just forgive them. That is the story of life. Just forgive. And I wanted to add, he's called the compassionate one for a reason. And when he rises in you, what are you but one with him? Therefore you are now the forgiver, the redeemer, the compassionate one, the ancient of days, whatever you want to call it. Question, inaudible. No, my dear, you see, God, as we're told in the 16th chapter of Proverbs, God has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Verse 4. Last year or the year before, no, it was a year ago, last November in New York City, my two brothers came up and they wanted to see Ida with a new interpretation of the opera, new costumes, new direction, new everything but the music. Music remained the same, but everything else was different. And it was a Saturday. Couldn't get near the Metropolitan Opera, and they had huge big ads in the papers that they were all taken. They had big posters on the outside, every seat sold, and you couldn't get near the place. Well, I don't accept facts at all. Man, if you want to write something on a Post-it and put it somewhere important so you can see it, and I'm going to put it on a 3x5 card in a minute, I don't accept facts at all. That's a good one. I don't, exclamation point. No matter what the world tells me, I don't accept the fact. If imagining creates reality, I don't accept facts. Boom, that's another one. Put that one down. If imagining creates reality, comma, if you're new to this, this is a great one to put down. I don't accept facts. So I said to my brother, we'll go to lunch, but first we'll go to the Met and we'll go straight to the box office and get seats for the next performance of Ida, which is Tuesday night. Confidence. Well, this was on a Monday. The next day was the opera Ida. So we formed a long line and I got into a line and it wasn't moving fast enough for me. So I moved to the next line. There were only 2 windows serving, so this line began to move. When I got down to almost to the window, almost down, the thing is moving rapidly. My 2 brothers remained in the back with my wife because we were going to lunch after. A huge big man, must have been 6'6", he stuck his hand over my head. The man who was in front of me, he was a little shorter than I am. I'm 5'11". I'm 5'11". He must have been 5'9". And this fellow was probably 6'6". He stuck his hand over my head and diverted the teller's attention. He asked him a question, and this man just simply took the 4 tickets given him and started towards the door, having left his money in front of him. When this man was almost to the street, this one thanked the teller profusely and then turned towards the door. The teller then turned to see what he had there. The tickets were gone, and he had just a few dollar bills. So he said, "What's all this?" The man had only put out just a few dollars. Instead of putting $20 for the 2 tickets, he had put, I think, $4. So he called to the man, and the man wouldn't answer. So I turned around and I screamed in my heavy voice I put on that day, and I said, Sir, you're wanted here." So he turned right around because he heard my voice and he came back. That was in all caps, by the way. He came to the window and said, "What's this all about?" And then the man said, "You only gave me $4 and you should have given me $20 for the 2 tickets." He said, "No, I didn't. I gave you $20. I said, Oh, no, you didn't. I was standing right behind you, and I saw exactly what you did and only gave him $4. I was here. Well, he looked at me because he was so short he had to look up. I said, that's all you did. I was standing here. You gave him $4. That's all you gave. So he opened up his wallet and he had oodles of $1 bills. And he did have a $20 bill tucked away on the side. So he asked the man, when will you discover your mistake? When will you discover your mistake? The man said, I didn't make any mistake. He said, but when you do discover it, when will it be? Tonight? He said, the end of the season. He had an odd sense of humor. This fellow certainly had his sense of humor. At the end of the season, said he. So he took the $20 bill out reluctantly and gave it to him, took his $4 back and walked out like a sheep. Then I stepped forward and said to the man, may I have 2 seats in the very center of that thing that is a circle? He said to me, you mean the grand tier, sir? That's what it is. I said, that's what it is. May I have it just right in the center of the grand tier? He said, yes, sir, exclamation point. And he pulled 2 out and gave them to me for my $20. Now, you see, had I stepped behind this fella who was basically a thief, God knew what he was. He played all the parts. So God made all things, even the wicked, for the day of trouble. So he knew I wanted 2 seats. And he knew the work I'm doing in this world. He put me right behind this man, referring he to God. He equals God in that sentence. Well, this isn't moving at all. This line is moving. So I naturally move into the moving line. He gets me right behind the one who intends to steal, and he knows that I'm going to allow him to steal if I could raise my voice and protect the teller from losing $16. And so I protested the action of this man, and as I did, the man, so I saved him $16, and so they always have a few seats for the VIPs. And so he gives blank space. At the moment, though, I'm not known in the world. I was in his eye a VIP. Good night. Wow, man. The Q&A sessions, I don't know what floats higher, the Q&A sessions or the actual lecture, but this one called The Law, February 12, 1965. We have 2 more on just the law to go, and I'm so excited about this. I hope you are too. We'll see you in the next one.